all my life. Think it's time to get it right.
Welcome back to the Pretty Purposeful Podcast. I'm your host, Angee
And I'm Candace Mabry.
We are back with another purposefully packed episode. Before we get into our episode, Candace, how you been?
Angee, I have been trying to get my weight together.
Girl.
So, I started my own little platform. It's called Health Matters.
Yes.
And the intent behind it was, and I started it years ago, the intent behind it was for people to see, a healthy lifestyle, a healthy weight loss journey. And I recently gained pretty much all my weight back.
Wow.
Gained all my weight back and more. There was a point where I had lost I think 50, 60 pounds, and then I had gained.
I saw y'all. Candace, listen, she's stallion, okay?
I was a little thickum, but a slim.
Yeah.
person.
Yes. So tell us what you got going on now.
So what I plan on doing is completing pretty much like a health challenge. And what it consists of is you have to do like 100 to 200 push-ups, 100 to 200 squats every week.
Okay.
You gotta make sure you get it done, no matter how you schedule it. If you miss Tuesday, then you're gonna have to do maybe 20, 40 more reps the next day.
Okay.
So I want to get those in, right? And then you are not supposed to eat bread, pasta, no desserts, no sugar.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough, but definitely watching the carbs, drinking lots of water. So yeah, that's going to be my little challenge.
Well, I mean, I hope you don't mind, but can I join?
Absolutely.
Because your girl, I picked up some weight as well, you guys, over the course of the holidays. And then I was in an accident last year, so I haven't been able to be that physically active as I wanted to be. And, I think this would be a great way to, challenge me to start moving again.
Yes. No, Angee, I'm going to hold you up. I'm going to hold you to it.
We're going to hold each other to it because, hopefully you guys will start to see our progression and our results week after week. So the challenge is on, honey.
Yes. We got this.
Girl.
So, Angee, tell me, how have you been? What have you been up to?
Girl. Okay, so as I mentioned last episode, my daughter is in her last year of high school. It's a very exciting time for us. And I say us because, for her, I know she's happy that she's accomplishing something major milestone, getting ready to go off to one of her top 3 college picks, which was University of Georgia. So go Dogs. And I'm very, very proud of her. This last week literally was just a lot of, support, being there to support her. She had an award ceremony where, my baby got Producer of the Year. She got Game Designer of the Year. She got an academic medallion, and she is an honor graduate. So I'm super proud of my baby. She came through, and she is very much an introvert. She's not an extrovert like her mama, but I'm so proud that she challenged herself this year to get active and be a part of the extracurriculars and build up her network. And so we did that. She also had a jazz performance this week, and she showed out. She had a little solo. What else did she? Oh, and then her senior class, they had like a senior fun day, so I had signed up to volunteer, and I spent all Friday with her. So I've had my moments this week. It's starting to sink in that my baby's not a baby anymore, and pretty soon she will be off to college, and I will be an empty nester. So that's what I've been up to.
She is spreading her wings.
She's an awesome young lady. I'm so proud of her.
Me too. Again, Michaela, do your thing, girl. This is only the beginning, and we know, you are going to shine.
Absolutely.
Period.
Absolutely. Well, before we get into this episode, Candace, I have a little surprise.
A surprise?
A surprise. So you know how you're always traveling, you're always on the go. I got you a little something. I got this bag for you. It is an official Pretty Purposeful Podcast weekender bag. You like it?
I love it.
Girl,
you literally have everything on the front. It is beautiful.
Yeah, I'm glad you like it, girl. Candace is always traveling, you guys.
I am.
Nowadays, Marketing is a thing, but this is bigger than just marketing. That right there represents the work that we've done thus far and all the great things that are to come.
Thank you so much.
Well,
When I say she is just full of creativity, I'm truly surprised by this.
girl,
I'm like, what?
do you see yourself on there, honey?
Hello?
Okay,
Full face. And when I say I always carry stuff with me when I'm traveling. So I'm like, Angee, she's now requiring me to step up my look game when I'm in the airport.
Girl. So y'all, if y'all see Candace in the airport, okay, if she has her bonnet on, like, don't judge her.
Thank you so much again. Like, this really does mean a lot. And I really want to put some plastic on it because it's like white. I'm scared of getting it dirty, but I love it.
Right, well, let's get into this episode, girl. So, as we are going through our lives and growing professionally and personally, there be those moments, I don't know about you, but sometimes I have to ask myself, am I enough? And I have come to find that there is actually a concept or there is a proper way to describe that thought process, and it's called imposter syndrome. So our episode today is going to be on imposter syndrome and how do we confront that. To be fair, not everyone, knows about imposter syndrome or what it is. So I do want to share with you guys a definition of it. Imposter syndrome is a psychological experience of feeling like a fake or phony despite any genuine success that you may have achieved. So I can definitely say that I have dealt with it. I currently still struggle with it. And through some of the research that I've done recently on the topic, people like myself who have come up from, dysfunctional families or who have limited support often tend to have imposter syndrome, especially those who are within marginalized communities as well. So, often imposter syndrome is often associated with high achieving individuals. Anybody that knows me knows I am a overachiever, and that type of behavior is, to overcompensate for those fears of, feelings of inadequacy, right? So Candace, do you think imposter syndrome is more prevalent in certain professions or career paths, and how can this perception affect individuals in different fields?
It is definitely prevalent in certain professions. You have your healthcare roles, you have roles like the First Lady of the United States, the President of the United States, a lot of these roles where it does require you to have had a lot of quote unquote achievement. So I would say, and after doing a little bit of research, this is typically found in doctors, people that have been in medical school for years, that typically deal with imposter syndrome, or folks that are overachievers, or people that are in high earning positions.
What about like IT?
Ooh, IT,
engineering.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those are tend to be male dominated spaces.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You see it all across the board, especially the higher the income goes. And it honestly doesn't matter how much you're getting paid. You can have it in, you're not in a high paying position. You can still have imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
It's really in your head. It deals with your belief. So to answer your question, yes, ma'am, it's across many careers. And from what I've researched, more so in the healthcare industry, a lot of doctors might feel like, do I know what I'm doing here? I hope I know what I'm doing. And the pressure is really high.
And like you were saying, I mean, especially you mentioned like as far as like the first female like vice president, or if you're in a C-suite position and you're a female, we see that show up because historically men have pretty much occupied those spaces. And then you have, let's just say, women that are entering those spaces, you also have to factor in race in there, and the fact that people of color haven't had many opportunities to be in those executive roles. So it is definitely prevalent amongst people of color, women, and even just people who may come from a background of poverty, any race. If you just you didn't grow up privileged per se, or you were less fortunate growing up. When you start to enter those spaces, you can start to question whether or not you actually deserve to be there.
So Angee, does social media make imposter syndrome worse? And how do you think it makes it worse?
That's a good question. I do believe that social media can definitely increase imposter syndrome. And because one, I mean, just without even thinking about professions, and we just thinking about like just your peers that you may follow on social media, just seeing how they're living, again, not really thinking about their specific careers, but just the different highlights that they show of their life. But being connected to those individuals can make you question, like, should they be connected to me on social media? Should they be engaging with me on social media? I really had to think about that one.
Think about this. How do you think individuals can differentiate between actual well-earned success compared to what social media might portray this person's success to look like?
I think for me, the easiest way that I can differentiate is people who are successful don't tend to be as braggadocious. People who have their together, they don't feel the need to get the validation. They just know what they have. And, I think the people who are more flashy and who are, like consistently posting like material, their material success. I think you have to be cautious to believing whether or not or how they acquired that success. The accounts that are more authentic tend to have a balance between their successes and their failures. They're more vulnerable with sharing some of their failures, because they want to help others, right? But if you notice certain accounts, they're always flexing for the gram or showing off, and never admitting when they make mistakes. I would be cautious, about subscribing to their lifestyle or even comparing your own to theirs.
Period.
I would definitely also pay attention to the depth of their content. Yeah. Definitely pay attention to the depth of their content and how much does their action align with the post that they make. I think that's also a form of discernment.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about this on an earlier episode, how I'm very, intentional about my feed and the people that I follow. And if I do sense that a person isn't authentic or they're selling a dream, we have a lot of influencers out there who are involved in certain digitally based businesses that may not have actually put in the time or the years of developing their skills or work ethic, and they're selling these lifestyles to people. And unfortunately, some people are just like googly eyed when they see money and see trips and just material possessions that they will just subscribe to that, blindly. But when I see a person taking advantage of the masses, because, nowadays anybody with a phone can get on the internet. And so the likelihood of, your following, you absolutely can have followers that don't know they don't have the ability to discern or differentiate. When I see that people are capitalizing on that, I personally just don't even want to follow them. Yeah. I don't need that. I don't need that junk in my spirit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really giving off inauthentic vibes.
Absolutely. And I don't, I hate to say it, but it's like seeing a train that is going to wreck. Those individuals clearly have an agenda. And it's like, I don't even want to witness the train wreck. I'm sure I'll hear about it, or maybe not. I would definitely say to just be cautious about comparing your life to those that you see online. And if there is somebody out there that is consistent, is vulnerable, and you're inspired, then I would say, those would be the individuals that you can look to for inspiration, motivation, and, a lot of times those individuals absolutely can, admit when they've had imposter syndrome themselves.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for answering that.
And so, Candace, earlier I touched on how women and people of color, are more likely to suffer from imposter syndrome. Like, what are your thoughts about the prevalence among those demographics.
Yes, it's definitely prevalent. And going back to what I was saying about the First Lady of the United States, or someone who was previously in that role, I am referring to Michelle Obama. I read an article this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking up celebrities that suffer from imposter syndrome, and little did I know that Michelle Obama, during one of her presentations to a group of students, admitted that she suffers from imposter syndrome from time to time. And she also admitted that she feels like this is something that will never go away for her. She literally said in the article, we could put the link.
Because she is the first, okay? She is the first black first lady. The first.
The very first.
That's big.
Yes.
But well deserved.
Well deserved.
Well, I mean, she represented that role so well. And I'm sorry I didn't.
Yes. No. She needs the flowers. We need the roses. Michelle Obama.
Yes.
We absolutely love you, and we thank you for representing us
very well. She not only represented us as a community, she represented this nation.
So it shocks me that, I mean, even her, but I get it because she's human, right? So it surprised me to see that she even suffers from it. Like in the article, it said that she mentioned she would say, you know, why are these people listening to me? These are her inner thoughts. Like, why are they listening to me? But she admitted to the fact that she has her doubts. Just like, I mean, it's a part of human nature to have doubts. But what I love about people, especially like you are a great example. Anyone that has achieved a lot of great success, you might feel that fear, you might feel that doubt, but you still keep going. Michelle still kept going. She had every reason to be like, no, we're not doing this.
Right.
We're not doing this. Right. But she still held it down, kept it moving, and I think served a great example. And also I want to go to another minority group, Asians.
Mm-hmm. Tell us more.
I think there is this stereotype that a lot of Asians are, even Africans, are pressured to perform a certain way or have a certain level of knowledge, or
that's a family thing.
Yes, obtain certain careers, doctors, lawyers, what's the
mathematicians, scientists.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
And I could see how many of them could deal with imposter syndrome because, you know, you very well might have worked your butt off to get where you are, to get to where you're supposed to be. But growing up in an environment where it's stressed that you better do this, this, and this, and then, you know, you might be there, but then just feel as though like, oh, I still can't believe I'm like really here.
Right. Like, how did I get here?
Yeah. You see how the two can kind of intertwine, I guess.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
So let me ask you this. How can systemic biases and stereotypes contribute to the feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt?
Exactly like what I mentioned before with, you know, I'll go back to the Asian examples, or even, you know, the African families that already stress the fact that, oh, you know, they really push for their kids to be doctors, lawyers, or some type of profession where you're guaranteed to make a decent amount of money, a lot of money, actually.
Well, I think that when other demographics or other races see people who have historically not had opportunities start to enter these spaces, the microaggressions that one has to deal with, right? That further, you know, exacerbates you already feeling inadequate. So yeah, I believe that the barriers, the biases that exist absolutely make that feeling even worse. Mm-hmm. I love that, you know, my current employer acknowledges that and is helping to combat that and really helping individuals, not just, you know, minority groups, but just anybody. Mm-hmm. It could be men that are in positions that, you know, again, maybe they didn't have the opportunity to finally get in that space and they don't feel like they really deserve it. But they're treating that as like a mental wellness opportunity, an opportunity to make sure that the employees are mentally well. So they're addressing it. You know, they're encouraging people to speak up about it and to seek help. And they do offer the resources. So, you know, hopefully more employers will acknowledge that and, you know, give their employees resources to address it.
Period. Because it's only going to make the employees better and the company better.
Absolutely.
Angee, in what ways can imposter syndrome impact your career progression and professional development? All right. Are there specific strategies or resources that individuals can utilize to overcome imposter syndrome in the workplace?
Yeah, so I have to use my own experience because, of course, I didn't always know what imposter syndrome was. So I was definitely dealing with it without being able to actually like name it. Mm-hmm. And so without being able to identify and name it, I didn't really know how to combat it or confront it, right? So in more recent years, I definitely acknowledged, you know, once I became aware of what it was, mm-hmm. I had to do a little self-assessment and say, okay, you were formerly a high school dropout. You formerly were in the juvenile justice system. You did not see yourself in a management. In one instance, I was actually in a director position. You've never envisioned yourself being there when you were younger. So now you're here. You've accomplished. You've gotten the master's degree, and with a 4.0, might I add. Well, sometimes I'm like, okay, did I really do that? I really did that. When you get there, it's like, okay, now that I'm here, because if you may not feel the support that you should feel, mm-hmm. right? You don't feel really supported, then that makes it even more, you know, of a, you know, you question yourself even more. You doubt yourself even more. So that can get in the way of you seeking out opportunities for mentorship. That can get in the way of you seeking out feedback from your peers, because it's like you're already thinking the worst about yourself in this role. Right. So why would anybody else, you know, want to give you any constructive feedback to help you grow, right? So that keeps you silent. Yeah, I just think that not addressing the imposter syndrome or acknowledging it, you will find yourself all alone mm-hmm. in your workplace and not really seeking out opportunities for development. It can also prevent you from making genuine connections. So if you're someone that's dealing with, you know, imposter syndrome, but you're showing up and acting like you're not, you're coming in, you're putting on this mask and acting like, oh no, I'm confident, I'm sure of myself, but you're in spaces with other people who actually might be feeling like you, who might actually have imposter syndrome too. And if you're coming in there, you're acting all like you are just good, you got this, then people might not want to even, like, I don't want to say not talk with you, but they may not want to connect with you because mm-hmm. they're like, oh no, she got her together. Mm-hmm. So you could miss out on the opportunity to actually, again, either be mentored by someone, make a genuine connection with someone.
That is the truth. And Angee, I remember we were talking about, you had someone on your team. Mm-hmm. I think it was a colleague of yours that mentioned some troubles he was having.
Oh, yeah.
And you even suggested, like, have you thought about imposter syndrome? Yeah. And he immediately said that, you know what, I've been thinking about looking into getting some therapy.
Right. When he dropped when he said therapy, I was like, wow. So I hadn't even gone that far because that would have been my suggestion. I was going to suggest that. But it's almost like he kind of already knew what he needed, right? And so to answer your other question, you mentioned, like, what are some ways to combat that and get over? I think within the workplace, a lot of employers, if they're not specifically addressing imposter syndrome, they do have resources in place like the employee assistance program that do offer, you know, a lot of times some initial, counseling. You know, you get so many sessions, right? Take advantage of those. If your employer has inclusion communities, definitely seek out those groups and those safe spaces that are there for you to connect with people. Because within those inclusion communities, there is an opportunity for you to connect and share your experiences, and you will find that a lot of the people there create those inclusion communities to have that safe space to be able to talk about things like imposter syndrome. And you also may find some mentoring opportunities within that network as well. Mindfulness is also something that you can do. I know at my workplace, I work in the healthcare system, so they heavily push self-care and wellness, and I love that. When it comes to mindfulness, there is, like, on YouTube, there are, different channels and things that they have that you can go to sleep listening to, like, positive affirmations.
I do that.
Yeah.
I've started doing that actually more often.
Yeah, because you're pretty much on autopilot. So your subconscious is like literally guiding a lot of your decisions. And those self-limiting beliefs that you have to feed, you have to, like, challenge those thoughts. And so the way that you do that is just by, programming your mind with those positive affirmations and positive thoughts.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I was just talking about how we can confront imposter syndrome within the workplace, right? So overall, like, what are some practical exercises or mindset shifts that we can implement to overcome imposter syndrome and cultivate a sense of self-assurance and authenticity?
Yes. Literally what you mentioned before, intentionally finding videos that will speak life into your soul. So the YouTube videos that give you affirmations, falling asleep to affirmation videos, that stuff is real. I literally started doing that more. Another thing, going back to journaling, but even here's a different way of journaling. So yes, it's similar to having a gratitude journal, but check this out. So try getting a notebook or whatever journal you want to get, and then every time someone gives you a compliment, write down that compliment in that journal. So this journal can be in your phone if you want it to be. You can have a little notepad, set it up in your phone, and every time someone gives you a genuine comment, we're not talking likes on your social media picture.
Right.
We're talking someone genuinely giving you a compliment. Write it down in whatever journal you have or your note tablet, and then just keep track of that and use those as reminders of, like, oh, I think I am. It serves as, because it's real. It really did happen. It's really genuine compliments given to you. So when I was listening to a podcast and I heard someone say that, and I was like, oh, that is awesome. So I was just like, yes, that's a great technique.
I love that. And I was just thinking about, as you were speaking and saying that, I thought about earlier today, Candace, one thing I would say about her, and I love, is that she gonna give you your flowers. I would have to say I'm the same way, but I didn't realize how bad my imposter syndrome was. I'm thinking it's just in the workplace. But to hear someone compliment you on some things that you've been doing for a long time and you haven't heard, compliments on, I literally had to be like, it's okay to receive that compliment, Angee. It's okay. Like, you do deserve to be acknowledged. You did work hard to achieve this, or to, be able to create what you have currently. And also, I won't say I'm super private, but to a certain degree, when it comes to my home space and the things that I have going on personally, I have been kind of private, right? So with Candace coming into my world and actually being able to appreciate all the things that I've been doing, I'm like, I'm just not used to that. That is a part of imposter syndrome. Yeah, so I had to confront that today, and I did confront it. I was like, you're going to accept that and receive that. Just lean into it, feel it, acknowledge it, and recognize going forward, if you continue, because we were talking about, I said, we don't know where this podcast is going to take us, but we are both ambitious. Yeah. Regardless if whatever we do collectively or individually, if I continue to excel, right? And whether it's professionally or artistically, however, when those accolades come, I think I'm going to have to confront those feelings of imposter syndrome every time. Every time someone, discovers something about me that I've already known, but it's new to them, and they actually genuinely, like, are, wow, inspired, appreciative. I have to really accept. We talked about Lapita.
Yes.
That made me think about, because when we talked about it earlier, you brought her up.
Yes.
that's, if you want to share, Candace, if you could just share.
Yeah, so remember the list of celebrities? I went Googling what celebrities suffer from imposter syndrome. Lupita, she was on the list. And what happened was she had won like the best supporting actor or something that was like a top tier role award, and she received it. And it got to the point to where she was like, "Ooh, it was like she had fear take over her." And a mentor of hers or a friend of hers told her, "Hey, it is okay. Do what is best for you."
Yeah.
And she told Lupita, she actually used to be an actress, and she said, "Hey, I know how you feel. I actually took 8 years off." And she went back into becoming an actress. So you live on your own terms, and just don't forget that, your successes, the great things that you've accomplished, you deserve it. The compliments you receive, the accolades, the appreciation people shows you, you deserve it. You deserve it. So yeah, that was Lupita.
Yeah, and that was like I said, that real experience today was just a reminder as we were talking about this episode, and here I was experiencing it. So it is definitely a ongoing thing, and I don't think it's not something where it's just instantly cured. I think that it's you have to kind of unlearn those self-limiting beliefs. That's part of the solution is really identifying and then intentionally unlearning them and replacing them with positive thoughts. So can imposter syndrome be reframed as a catalyst for personal growth and resilience?
It can. Just like what you literally, yes. Look, you answering my question. I love it though. Yes, you can. You can reframe this doubt, this fear, this low self-worth belief, because that's technically, it kind of, imposter syndrome is kind of a cousin of having the thought of low self-worth, like low self-worth, or not feeling worthy, not feeling enough.
Right.
So you can literally turn that around and be like, yeah, no, I'm going to keep going. No, Candace, you are enough. No, Angee, you've accomplished a lot, and we're going to continue to be on the train of accomplishing even more.
Yeah.
You can keep it moving, even while those thoughts are there. Just like Michelle said, she has her doubts. But no, she has not allowed it to stop her.
Right.
It has helped so many people. Just imagine if Michelle allowed her thoughts to prevent her from becoming who she is now.
Right.
Just imagine.
She could have just stopped after the presidency. She could have just went back and just,
lay low.
Just, right. But, she's like, no. I am who I am, and I am for a reason. And, she's continuing on with her purpose.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so many young girls that look like me and you now have a role model to look at and say, okay, she did it with class, so can I.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it made me think about her. I know she has the one book that she just recently wrote, The Light Within.
Yeah.
Right? Well, I haven't read it yet, but it made me think about her book, Becoming, which I did read. Okay.
I was just about to say, I was like,
that book. Yes. And so I brought that up because I had recently changed my my bio on my Facebook page to everything I want to be and still becoming. And that was inspired by Michelle Obama's book and her life, and just knowing that no matter what you've accomplished thus far, like, you are still a work in progress. And even if up until this day right now, you are not where you want to be, you are not where you were before, which means you are everything you want to be, but you're not, there's still more to become. That's the way you reframe that, because you could literally say, okay, I'm not where I want to be. I'm not who I want to be. But that you're basically saying that you're not going to try anymore. You're not going to, continue trying. But if you reframe that and say, I am everything I want to be, but I'm still becoming. Come on, Beth. That was a bell moment. Okay?
That was. I love how you tied that in.
Yes.
It's a mind. That is a wonderful way of thinking about it. The mindset shift.
It is. It's paramount. Absolutely. Very, very paramount.
What role does vulnerability play when it comes to addressing imposter syndrome in relationships?
Whew. So when you say relationships, that's a very broad category because there's different type of relationships. But I will say overall and generally speaking, when it comes to relationships, one thing that is key to establishing any type of relationship is trust. So I think that vulnerability absolutely plays a huge part. If you're in a relationship where you feel that you don't deserve to be there, again, that could be, a friend, if that's let's say a partnership like you and I, what we're doing, right? Or you get in a new relationship with someone and maybe you kind of maybe you put this person on a pedestal and you feel like they're too good for me, I'm not good enough for them. So how you combat that is one, the vulnerability is first of all acknowledging within yourself that you are enough or you wouldn't be in that space. Okay. And then secondly is being, trying to intentionally develop that trust with that individual, which is, of course, communication is important as well. So being able to effectively communicate how you're feeling. You don't necessarily have to say, hey, I don't think I deserve to be here, but just like genuinely showing up authentically and like really getting to know that person, allowing that person to get to know you. Because if you are trying to mask who you truly are, well, now you're allowing those self-limiting beliefs create this false identity of you. You're not able to, that relationship's not going to be able to thrive or grow. You literally will be blocking your blessings.
That was good. Okay, next question. So, how can individuals cultivate an environment of trust and authenticity to navigate the challenges of self doubt with their loved ones?
Wow. That's a tough one because everybody, loved ones aren't easy to love.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we're not easy to love, right? But it just goes back to really understanding who it is that you are, talking to, who you are. Like our last episode was, who the F am I dealing with? It's really acknowledging who that individual is, right? Nobody is the same. You can't approach every relationship the same. So being adaptable, being able to identify, what is it about this person or this relationship that, is making me want to continue. Clearly, at that point, if you're trying to address the imposter syndrome within those relationships, the relationship has importance to you, right? So I think if a person is not mature or if they're not intentional with how they handle you, then that may not be a relationship that you even need to direct that much energy to, right? Even though you may be trying, your best to work around those self-doubt, self-limiting beliefs, but you also have to take a step back and ask yourself, is this relationship reciprocal? Is it reciprocal? And not that everybody in the relationship has to give, equal give and take, but it should be, it should be equally beneficial as far as, is it healthy, right? It shouldn't be taking away from you, and it should not be adding to your already self-limiting beliefs, right? Because there are some people who will know that you may be dealing with that, and they will, kind of highlight that. They will use that to their advantage, and that's a sign that that's not a healthy relationship. That's only going to increase those feelings of self-doubt and low self-worth. So we kind of touched on this already, but I just want to kind of dive a little bit deeper. Do you believe that imposter syndrome can cause self-sabotaging behaviors within relationships?
It does, and in many ways. Many ways.
Tell us more.
Here are some examples of how you can literally self-sabotage your relationships. So here are a few. So the constant need for validation, right? So that's one. having a fear of rejection, overcompensating, and having an inability to trust. All right, so let's look at the constant need for validation. All right, when you are always trying to get that validation from your partner or even your friend, all right, you like me, right? You like me. You love me, right? You love me. That could cause the person to feel drained from feeling like they need to do whatever they need to do to cause you to feel validated. Wow. That could be very draining. Now let's look into the fear of rejection. Feeling like you're not good enough or feeling like you're not worthy, that's pretty much like having a fear of rejection. Like, if I show myself completely authentically as I am and this person might not like it, that's a fear of rejection. Yeah. So when it comes to overcompensation, you are literally doing everything in your power to let this person like you, right?
That's like people pleasing.
Yes, it is. It is like people pleasing, and even that could come off as not genuine. Yeah. Like, so why are you really doing all of this? It can cause blurry lines between, are you genuinely doing this from your heart, or is it coming from a place of fear? And imposter syndrome, it does seem to come from a spirit of fear.
You better say that. That's absolutely true.
Yeah. And I was talking to my uncle about this topic that we're covering, and he literally mentioned some pretty good stuff as far as he's like, let's talk about the mindset of the person that has imposter syndrome. He was basically
old school. He went back to basics.
He went back to the basics of, you either believe in a God or you don't. Like, you believe that God is working for your good or you don't.
Because God is not that the spirit of fear is not of God.
It's not.
So he went back to the basics. Okay, sometimes that's what we got to do.
Yes. If you truly believe that you are loved, that you are enough, a lot of these things that I mentioned on this list, constant need for validation, fear of rejection, overcompensation, inability to trust. It's like, if you really do have, I guess, that love of God in your heart, or if you really are a true believer, a lot of these things won't be as heavy of an issue, even though, even I deal with some of this. This is where I guess I kind of it gets a little confusing because it's like, well, there kind of is a little bit of gray because, you still have doubts. You still have these negative emotions that pop up. But I guess what plays a factor, or what really matters, is, all right, you have the feelings, so what you gonna do?
There you go.
What now?
We have free will. We can either buy into it, or we can believe that we are more than a conqueror.
Amen.
Okay? Yeah, that's what it boils down to. And of course, you can't just, universally say that, but that is universally the truth, as far as I believe, as far as we believe, But yeah.
How can we recognize and overcome the pattern of undermining our own happiness and fulfillment due to not feeling like we're enough?
Well, of course, the first thing you got to do is acknowledge that you're doing it. Okay? Knowledge is power. And if you are, in denial about it, if I wasn't necessarily in denial about it. I just didn't know how to name it. I didn't know it wasn't identified. And until you can actually identify an issue or a problem, you can't start, working on the resolution. Okay? So the first thing you got to do is admit that there is a problem. And then after that, seek out help. So right now, we're offering you guys some information that we hope that is helpful and useful. And we are a source of information for anyone who may be suffering with it, or may not have even known that that's what they had been dealing with, right? But anybody out there who may not have, known exactly what it was, once they become aware of what it is, now there are other resources that are available. So you have to and I've been saying this, you have to kind of equip yourself with the tools to combat that. And, again, some of those tools are, being able to meditate, journal. What I do personally, and you probably have seen this, is in my bathroom mirror, on the mirror, I have positive affirmations. I have a tall standing mirror in my bedroom. I have positive affirmations. So, I have one mirror. Well, you guys, if I'm vain, Lord, forgive me. But the reality is, I like a lot of mirrors because when I look into the mirror, it gives me an opportunity to self-reflect. It's not always about the physical appearance. It's about seeing myself outside of myself.
That's right.
Right? So when I look into that mirror, I'm not looking into that mirror and just focus on my outward appearance. I'm actually looking within. They say your eyes are the windows to the soul, but when do we actually see the windows, to the windows of our soul?
Ooh.
So when I look at my mirrors, I purposefully have these positive affirmations. And one of my favorite ones is on a smaller, slim mirror that I have in my bedroom. And it says simply, finish what you started. It's not just a reminder to keep moving, but it is a reminder that I'm capable. It's telling me that you're capable to continue on. So don't stop. You can't stop. You still have more in you. So I would encourage you to, adopt different practices like that. Of course, speaking with other people who are dealing with similar, feelings of doubt and self-doubt, and or people who have overcome that. So, connecting with others, community is important. Like Candace was saying before, we're believers. And so our faith lies within God. And so we trust that even when we have these moments of, feeling, inadequate,
Right.
we understand that we're human. We have external factors. We have external variables that we have no control over, such as the systemic barriers, such as the marginalization, such as the limited opportunities, and such as the struggle that we have to endure to often accomplish these things. So, we have to give ourselves grace because God gives us grace. So we have to give ourselves grace. And that's part of overcoming this imposter syndrome.
Amen. Give yourself grace. Oh, that hit my heart.
Yeah. So, this episode has really been about acknowledging, that imposter syndrome is a real thing. Not one human is exempt from it. Our hope is that, the people who are watching this now will be able to acknowledge if they're dealing with it and be able to take some action to combat it and to confront it. We said from the very beginning, the question that we often ask ourselves is, am I enough? Well, I want to kind of wrap this episode by saying that you have a simple phrase that you can use when that question comes up that will immediately denounce that thought, and it is, I am enough. Before we get out of here, I do just want to say that we were able to talk about, what imposter syndrome is. We talked about how it can show up in the workplaces, within families, communities, friendships, relationships. We truly hope that this episode will have helped you be able to identify imposter syndrome and encourage you to seek out some resources to combat it. Candace, any closing thoughts?
Girl, you almost brought tears to my eyes. Reframing what you said. Instead of asking, am I enough? I am enough. You got to believe that.
Absolutely. You guys are enough as well. And until we join you guys next time, it's okay to be pretty.
But even better to be
Pretty
purposeful.
Bye.
Pretty purposeful, pretty purposeful, pretty purposeful, pretty purposeful, pretty purposeful, pretty purposeful. Living life intentional, just in case you didn't know. Pretty purposeful, pretty purposeful, pretty purposeful, pretty purposeful, pretty purposeful. Tired of wasting all my life, think it's time I get it right. Tired of wasting all my life, think it's time I get it right. Tired of wasting all my life.